What is going on, coin traders? Looking at ICP Internet Computer. If you have been following the channel, you know that this is one of the ones we love. So it's been a great day to see ICP just extremely explode like this. But we do have a lot to talk about and a lot of things to say about this current chart setup, because we know as much as we love the price to be at this level and obviously breaking the $10 level as well, we know that this pattern historically has not had a lot of good things happen to it. So even looking back, start of the year, every time we do have one of these massive spikes, huge sell-off, massive spike, sell-off, spike, sell-off. So it's not unreasonable to expect right now a higher likelihood, not necessarily saying we're going to retrace all the way back down to this level just like we did in the past. But we know that with over a 50% rally in one day, we did approach, I believe, about the 60% level. So from the start to the high right now, yeah, looking at about 65%. So just since the low, kicking off the $5 psychological, we have seen 138% gains in about a week, so about 7 days. So especially with closing the candle here coming up soon, and even now on this chart zooming out, you can see just kind of a nice little blip right here on this bar compared to everything else, all these other candles. So this has definitely been the largest weekly candle that we've actually seen for ICP. And now one other thing too is that if we actually look at the volume here, this is the largest amount of volume that we've actually seen for candles. And specifically, if we do shift over into the daily, one of the things that we're looking at, and I actually made a tweet about this earlier, is that we're actually seeing the largest bullish day. And probably by the time we actually close, I expect to see the largest amount of bullish volume at all. So even if we zoom out, you can see, yeah, we've already surpassed well above the previous volume bar. So the previous all-time high for volume was actually bearish, and we were actually looking at bearish volume being about, actually need to go back and check this, it is about 4.995 million. So currently right now on the daily candle, we're looking at a volume bar of about 6.292 million. So definitely a lot of ICP exchanging hands, especially when the overall circulating supply is less than 500 million. And so, yeah, a lot of great things still to talk about in this chart. Like we mentioned over here on Twitter, if you're not currently following me over on Twitter or X, at @coin_trades is the handle. Do post quite a bit over here, especially about ICP, since it's one of the favorites of the channel. So definitely drop me a follow if you're not just yet. Looking forward to commenting and chatting with everyone over there. Another tweet I did want to talk about is how entries at this point are extremely risky. And that's not to say it can't go higher, but we will see a substantial sell-off here. It's just a matter of when. Now, a lot of people were under the impression that I'm saying that this is pretty much the peak and all that stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying. But when we talk about, just like we said, we have a lot of sell-offs that we have seen. Big spike sell-off, big spike sell-off. And this happens all the time in crypto. We've never seen a chart like this have an explosive move and then be able to sustain this without some sort of big and substantial sell-off. Now, I say substantial, but really what we see, and actually one of the good recent cryptos that we have is Pulse, for example. So this one just had a huge rally yesterday that closed. So from the bottom, looking at a rally over 55%. So similar, and just now, as you can see, we're about down 11+%. But from the high, we're actually looking at about down 23% here. And this is common for a lot of cryptos. Typically, we see about 30 to 35% of a pullback and retracement. So usually we do see a retracement kicking off these EMAs. And then what happens there, then, you know, anyone's guess pretty much. But we are expecting a pullback, and that's why exactly with ICP right now, we are actually looking at kind of an anticipation of the same thing. And like I said, definitely not predicting a top to come in, because a lot of that's going to be based on the shorter term trends. But so right now, if we flip over into the 5-minute, for example, pullback, we're actually looking at a little bit of a bear flag, likely a retracement down to this previous resistance level, which now, in theory, should be support coming in right at 934. So I would expect a little bit of support coming in at that level, and then we might be on our way again. Or if this level breaks, then we will be flipping out and zooming in longer, which also will confirm this as being the trend high. And probably in that instance, that will end up being a little bit more of that longer term sign. So even looking at the 4-hour, for example, still looking like we could be seeing a topping coming in, especially after seeing a huge, massive peak for a volume. So just 4-hour volume alone, 2.566 million. So a retrace is definitely not uncommon. On the 4-hour, we would be looking pretty much right around the 740 level. So we could still be seeing a retracement in anticipation of that level. And so even from the current price point, just below the $10 level now, that would be a 25% retracement from the current trend high. That's about 37%. So that's definitely a reasonable target to the downside. If we do go ahead and actually flip charts and zoom out, you can see how that's a very nice level to actually be looking at in terms of previous support as well as previous resistance. So looking previous resistance, as well as flipping over into support, resistance, and then support as well. So very relevant level coming in at 740. So if we do see further slippage, that's going to be one of the big signs that we look for next. And if we do look up overhead, we could be looking at a potential rally into the 15s if we do see a sign of strength. But definitely no predictions of that in this instance. But if we do see a rally to the upside continue, that could be a very nice price target to the upside, because zooming out, we actually didn't have much on the chart in terms of price levels in between where we're at currently and that big level at 15, since it was big support back in February of the 2022 year. But we do have a lot that needs to happen in order to see that. And like we typically say, growth this fast is not necessarily a good sign. Obviously, it's great for huge pumps, but that's also kind of why it's a very big profit opportunity, because we know that huge spikes and gains like this are never sustainable long-term and always have resulted in shorter-term pullbacks, or longer-term pullbacks rather. But that doesn't mean still we won't continue to long-term go higher. Now, if you do have a crypto or chart that does kind of break this rule of what I'm saying, where we just continue to go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and then flat and then higher, I would love to know what the chart is down in the comment sections below. We can look at it in a different video and have a discussion about it over on Twitter or X as well. Now, other thing I did make a tweet about earlier is how we're actually looking at an internet computer being in the top 20 now. So currently with this huge rally over the last couple of days, we have taken over the number 20 spot for Bitcoin Cash. So now we're sitting in between Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash. Very nice spot coming in right at number 19. So looking at, even with a $10 price level, still looking at a market cap of $4.5 billion with a total circulating supply of 451 million. All right, so flipping over here into the 1 hour, just want to talk about the current setup as well, because we have been riding these exponential moving averages to the upside this whole time. So even on the most 3 recent attempts, we have seen kicked off the 50, but rally sideways, kick off the 12, rally more or less sideways, kick off the 12, and that's where we're at in this final stage. So pulling back and right now looking at 12 as well. Currently, the 12-period EMA is at 9.88. And that also actually intersects with a very nice trend line that we saw as previous resistance on a lot of these moves. So previous resistance flipping, now we would be looking at it as that period of support. So between exponential average support as well as trendline support, and even potentially wicking down to about the 940 level all the way down to potentially the 925 level, that's going to be our big support zone that we're probably going to be looking for, either a consolidation pattern in terms of a pennant formation, or even potentially a longer-term bear flag, or a bull flag, excuse me. But one of the things that I do want to talk about is that if we actually talk about total market caps for crypto, so we're looking at total 3 right now, which is the total market cap without Bitcoin and or Ethereum. So you can see huge level that we have been breaking, definitely a nice rally, especially above the exponential moving averages, but we also haven't had a substantial pullback and retracement. Right now, this weekly candle is not looking like we're going to actually see a slowdown at all. So we could have a very strong case for a little bit more continued action to the upside for crypto. But also, if we do look at resistance points to the right over here to the left, we're actually looking at quite a few coming in right at about just shy of $500 billion. If we do manage to just plow through that, though, then we would be looking at a very nice level all the way up to about 635. Very potential for that to then ultimately retrace and actually find support on this $500 billion support level. So we could see a very strong case for continuation and a rally, especially given a lot of the other market conditions, like the Dow Jones Industrial Average finding a new all-time high and the S&P 500 about to be finding new all-time highs as well. In addition to that, gold finding new all-time high as well tends to correlate frequently with what Bitcoin is doing. But yeah, so flipping back over into ICP, just want to talk about some technicals here before we go ahead and wrap up. So we're looking at right now 2-day RSI, our relative strength index. Currently right now we're looking at 91.42, and that wasn't even the RSI given the top that we were looking at into the $11, almost $12 level. So this got extended very much. And so the only other time that we actually saw the RSI get extended was during the rally at the start of the year, which wasn't even as much of a significant rally. We barely broke that and then retraced as we saw. So we could definitely expect, especially after not spending much time in between the 30 and 70 lines here, just pretty much going straight up into overbought, retracing, and then extremely overbought, that we are still going to be looking for a little bit of opportunity for that retracement. I expect a very similar pattern to be happening what we saw at the start of the year, where after a very nice rally, we could see a more or less doji type pattern, confirming that reversal before we see a retracement. But like we said, short-term trend is still very much in the bull's favor, so we do have to lose that first before confirming a longer-term top on this daily and seeing a longer-term retracement and pullback. So just to highlight and reiterate once again, I'm definitely not calling for a top, but we do need to see what happens in the shorter term, because if we do start to lose the shorter term uptrend, that will confirm the top, and we will be looking for a longer term pullback like we've seen at the start of the year when we did have this explosive rally up to about the 820 level. So I do want to switch over to the weekly chart again, talk about the RSI. We're looking at a weekly RSI of 84.25. Again, that was higher once we actually hit our high. But the great thing about this weekly chart is that we're actually looking at a very nice break and close above this 50-period exponential moving average on the weekly, which we've never seen before, especially after these are getting very tight. So even with a retracement, this would expect to backtest these exponential moving averages, pulling back to support of about 7.389, or potentially even down to 6.4 at the very worst. If we want to talk about a Fibonacci retracement from that low here, we would be looking at a retracement essentially for the 50% retracement, which would actually be coming in at 738. And if we do look left, that would align perfectly with where that previous point of resistance was for that rally at the start of the year, just below that 61.8, coming in right below where we see closing level of resistance after that. And then on the very low end, this is actually fitting up perfect, because we do see the 78.6 being that point of resistance for this weekly before the most recent 2-week spike all the way up to the current trend, as well as looking left a little bit further, big point of support before we actually flipped it into resistance when we did find support on top of the $4 before pulling back and finding our all-time low. So really a lot of these Fibonacci retracement levels are extremely relevant, but if we do look at the 38.2, we're looking at 8.45. So my expectation is that if we do see a pullback and retracement across crypto over the next couple of weeks, or whenever it does happen, those will be the levels that we will be looking at for significance, as they are applicable on a price level point as well as a Fibonacci technical level point as well. All charts are overextended though, so again, the daily, the 12-hour, exactly all the way down pretty much until the shorter term right now. So we do have to get down into the hourly before starting to see. But again, on the hourly, we are confirming backtest of this period on the 12-period exponential moving average. So as long as we do maintain the uptrend in the shorter term, like we said, we will continue to see this price maintain, especially as we do continue to see higher and higher volume come in. So a sustained volume uptrend does mean continuation of this trend and price. So that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for our update on ICP Internet Computer. Would love to know everyone's thoughts and opinions down in the comment sections below, or any disagreements as well. Congrats to the bulls. It's definitely a fun day, and this is one of the things that's super exciting about being in the crypto space, is just seeing market conditions just like this when they can get extremely bullish, more bullish than we ever thought. Just know that the higher and the more vertical the chart does go, the more increased likelihood and the higher the risk does get. So if you do want to make shorter term entries, then I would suggest against it, but not financial advice, of course. But that is going to go ahead and wrap up the video for now. Do appreciate all the continued love and support. If you did enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. Stay safe, take care, everyone, and I'll catch you back in the next video.